Hey everybody, Stewart here, and today we're gonna start a new series. That's right, we're gonna be playing some Banished. Now, I love this game. There's so much about it, like all these emergent properties, and it blows my mind that this was done by just one guy developing it. What is his name? Luke. It's kind of Polish, like Hodorowicz or something. I'll look it up for you in post. But yeah, it's just probably the best city builder game I've ever played, and I will extol the praises of Banished from here till the end of time. I'm really like addicted to it and just enjoy it so much. So I'm hoping I can share it with you all, and yeah, we should have a lot of fun playing it. And don't worry, I'm definitely going to be doing some scrap mechanic. I just figure we need a little variety. We need to do like a couple of different kinds of games. So this should be kind of a fun like second series to pick up. So anyway, so what are we going to be doing in our Let's Play? Well, embarrassingly enough, despite the fact I've been playing it for so many years, I've never unlocked a single achievement. Yeah, 0% complete. And the main reason why is very early on I jumped into like playing stuff like Colonial Charter and all the different mods, and once you start using the mods, you can't unlock the achievements, so it kind of blocked me out from that. In addition to that, I've never really built like a very large settlement. I believe my largest has only been 280 people, because I tend to play on like smaller maps, and when it's smaller, you can't grow as much. So it's high time that we fix that, and I want to fill out nearly the entire thing. One of the ones I'm going to be skipping, though, and actually the only one I'm going to be skipping, is Mountain Men. And the issue with it is it's a small mountainous map. And unfortunately, with the small maps, it's just, you can't really build a massive population. I've seen some videos of people out there who have managed to get up to like 700 or so on smaller maps, but it's very difficult to do that. And if we're going after something like Town, I don't even think it'd be possible. Not if we also are going for Mountain Men. Not to mention, like, after a while, like, you can only build so much on a small map, and even less on a mountainous map. And I want to have a big kind of sprawling metropolis going on. I don't want to have like a very tiny village. So we're gonna table this one. We might come back to it in like a how-to guide or something of that nature. But for now, I want to focus on other achievements. Now, the first two we're gonna be going for, just to talk some strategy, are these: Isolationist and One with Nature. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit challenging if we can't build trading posts. The nice thing about trading posts is they can basically, if you have a glut of one particular resource, you can turn it into something that you can actually use, that you have a need of. So it's a good way of balancing out your resources and making sure that the spread is pretty equivalent for all the different materials that you're going to need. But since we're not doing that, we're going to have to play in a very particular way. And I'll be talking more about the strategy as we go forward. This one kind of just rolls right in Isolationist. We are going to have a hard start, so we won't actually have any seeds at our initial start. And without trading posts, we can't acquire any seeds. So we should be able to reach this one no probs if we're going after Isolationist. Now, there's one other one to keep in mind as we grow, and that's Uneducated. Getting this one is going to hurt. It's going to be pretty painful. You really you should love having schools up. And the reason for that is essentially educated citizens are just far better workers than uneducated citizens. And also, schools have this nice effect where Again, this is an emergent property I'm talking about, but essentially, instead of jumping from child to adult, there's an education period, and that actually it slows down your reproduction and your town growth. And you might say, well, why would that be something that you would desire? Don't you want to grow the town large? Yes, but you want to do it at a sustainable, steady rate. If you try to build too, if you go out the gate really fast and you try to build this huge, sprawling metropolis right away, you aren't going to be able to keep up with stuff like firewood, food. You're going to start to run out of essentials. And the only real way to avoid that is to kind of intentionally gear down your growth. Now, there are ways to do that without schools, but schools are basically the most convenient way to approach it. So not having them, again, it's going to kind of hurt us a little bit. But fortunately, once we get to 300 citizens, unlock uneducated, we can start educating the town. So hopefully we'll reach this point fairly quickly, and then we won't have to worry about it because we'll actually have educated people coming in. But yeah, it's gonna be a little tricky going after those initially, but we can talk about it forever, or we can jump right in. Wow, look at that name. Winniewood Cresswell. I feel like that must be almost like a Germanic thing, like how they string together phrases. It's like Winwood Cresswell. I don't know. It's oh my goodness. Well, we aren't gonna be using that name. I did a little think on this, a little sit down, and I want to call it Runnymede. And I think that's a very poetic sounding name, but it's also historically significant. It's where the Magna Carta was signed, so it gives me a chance to give you a little history lesson. So we're gonna go with Runnymede, and I've actually already picked out a map seed for this playthrough. And the reason why, it's actually probably one of the few beefs I have with Banished. And this comes from my background of I've done a lot of world building and kind of just designing both for Dungeons and Dragon campaigns, also like video game design. I'm not a professional by any means. I'm an amateur, but I pay attention to world building. I'm thinking of doing a lecture on it at some point. I'll try to put that up on the channel, but I do pay attention to stuff like geography, and unfortunately the way that the map seed generates, almost always it doesn't match up with any kind of real world geography. You'll get rivers flowing into other rivers in odd ways. Lakes will appear in the middle of mountains. There's something about like the map generation that kind of throws me off. It's just not aesthetically pleasing. It doesn't really match up with what you would see in the natural world. But considering one guy made this game and it took him like 2 years of hard labor, I think we can forgive him for it, especially because everything else is so solid. So what I've done though is I spent actually quite a considerable amount of time just doing map seeds until I found one that I feel like looks pretty good. So we're going to go with this one. Now, other settings. If you're new to the game, you might be curious about this kind of stuff. So there are really two terrain types, valleys and mountains. Mountains, they're good if you want to have, say, a challenge of a game, but it limits your building space. You really want a lot of flat land in the game, because most of the buildings rely on flat land, and I don't know, like, mountains are good for challenges, but if you just want kind of not so much a relaxing game, but a game where you can really build out and just have like a really big city going on, you want valleys. Now, I chose a large terrain size because essentially it dictates two things. How big your population is ultimately going to get, because obviously more space means more room for houses. But it also influences how much starting stone and iron you'll have lying on the ground. And since we aren't going to be building traders for a number of years, having easy access to that without having to build a mine or quarry immediately is going to be very convenient and helpful for pursuing the achievements we want to pursue. Now, because I've been playing the game for so often, just to give myself a challenge, I've set disasters on, climate's going to be harsh, and hard starting conditions. Now, ironically, some people, and I actually am included in this, would argue that if you're a beginner, hard might be an easier start than medium or easy. Now, the reason for it is twofold. On hard, you start with less people, you only have 4 families, and you only have a small amount of starting resources, but you also have no seeds and no cattle or any kind of pastures. You might be wondering, like, well, that sounds terrible. Why would you want to start off at such a disadvantage? When you only have 4 families, you don't need as many houses built, at least to get through your first winter. The other thing about it is it encourages good play. Like, essentially, if you start off with fields and orchards and a herd of livestock, you're going to be tempted to want to build all those immediately, and that's a terrible idea. Essentially, like, early game, these farms they're a trap. It's something like that as you play, you kind of understand more and more. Now, livestock is okay early game, but the problem with farms is you only get food one time throughout the year, and you get that during the autumn, during harvest, and then you have to survive off the food stores that you have for the rest of the season if that's your only source of food. And often that can lead to disaster. You know, you might have, especially if you're playing on a harsh climate, you might have an early frost that kills your crops. Or, you know, like, it's something that you want to transition into farming. You don't want to start out the gate with it. So, I don't know. You might actually fare better if you do, say, either a hard start or, you know, you might want to get the extra tools and whatnot with the easy start. But if you do that, I would skip planting. I mean, you'll have the seeds when you want them, but going straight for farms is kind of it's a trap. You don't want to do it. So I'm gonna start on hard, both because I feel like I've played the game enough to be able to do okay at that kind of start, and you know I want the challenge. So. Anywho, well, we can talk forever, or we can hit the OK button. Load up Runnymede. Yeah, I love the art in this game, and some people disagree with me on that, but I don't know. I like that it doesn't really pop out, and it's kind of subtle. It looks more like how houses actually looked, as opposed to some kind of fantastical, crazy like hand painted texture design that you often see in these sort of medieval city builder games. So I like it. Some people think it's a little plain, but everyone is, you know, it's opinion. It's not like you can clarify what is the correct way to go. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit pause. And the reason for that is twofold. One, I don't want these guys walking around kind of being lazy and having no orders while they eat up all their food. We don't want that. We want them to actually have buildings that they need to get building. You know, there's a whole bunch of reasons why you really want to hit pause almost immediately. And that's easy enough. You just go to simulation speed and hit that little pause there. The other reason is I like to get situated out the gate. So I put up, sorry, the little, you know, the recorder things right there. I should really set to not have that up, but I don't know. Yeah, you see our town name, and this has all kinds of handy information. Happiness and health of citizens, your supplies, the temperature outside, the ratio of adults to children, and what season it is. As well as up here, we'll have different little alarms, like, you know, right now, no one has homes. Uh-oh, what a disaster. So we'll definitely work on that almost immediately. I like to put up the event log, because that, you know, you'll notice, like, when people are born, when people die, any kind of, like, if there's a fire breaking out, anything of that nature. So it's a handy thing to have. I'll also put up our map. Now, I like this map. There's still, like, you see what I mean here, where sort of like the way that these rivers flow doesn't make much sense. Like, you wouldn't have a situation where, like, down here, you know, naturally, the way this creek should have flowed, like it should have followed the texture like into this lake. And it's kind of like a silly thing to be concerned with, but I don't know. It also looks like these are gouged out as opposed to sort of like smooth, and yeah, it's kind of my one major beef with the game. Like I feel like they could have I feel like Luke could have spent some time on just smoothing this out and adding some additional like just kind of features. But anyway, it's really just a small gripe, and overall the game's really solid. So I do like the start though. I like the fact that we do have lakes, but they're kind of off in a way, and they're not really taking up space around where I want to build our main settlement up here. Lakes they're kind of a two-edged sword. Sometimes you'll get nice little peninsulas like over here where you can do really well with fishing, but often they're just kind of like taking up room that you could use on other things. So I don't really like maps with a ton of lakes on them. It's just kind of a thing I feel. The other thing to keep in mind is you do kind of want to start near the big river. Every map will have one big river and then some little tributaries. And the little tributaries are kind of just nuisances. They don't really do much for you. But the big one, you need that for trading. So you definitely want to start kind of near a big river. Which we are. We're right up against it. If we were doing trade routes or trading right away, this would be ideal. Unfortunately, we are not. So we're going to have to kind of like maybe set aside some space. It could be for a trader later on, but we're not going to use it immediately. What we are going to use immediately, if you get down here, now you see how that juts out a little bit and you have a slight curve there? That is an ideal spot to put in a fishing dock. Now, you see that little circle around the fishing dock? That circle, it basically dictates where fish are collected from, and you want as much water within that circle as you can possibly fit. Now, if I put it over here, say, I get a lot less water than I do at this little curve. So you want to look for those kind of things. Like look for these big U-shapes that you can place, or another one, say, like over here. That's pretty good. Sometimes you get really lucky. Like if you go down here, and you'll be able to get, a whole lot in maybe. Yeah, see that almost the entire circle is in the water. So that's going to be a really good fishing dock eventually, but it's going to take us a while to get all the way down there. So for now, I'm just going to put a fishing dock right there. Now, one thing you want to pay attention to, especially as you start off, is you really don't want to give these guys orders that send them halfway across the map. Surprisingly, like even walking, say, this far, that's a long distance for these guys. And basically, I haven't quite worked it out, but I believe like every step a villager takes adds to their hunger. And eventually they get hungry, and then they have to walk back. So it's you definitely don't want them having to walk very far, especially early in the game. Now, looking around, it's a little bit tricky because we definitely want to exploit this fishing pretty much almost immediately, but there's not much other good building areas immediately around. So I'm thinking we're going to make use up here, and then maybe this will grow into sort of our town/market area eventually, but we're not going to jump into markets right away. We're going to have to live off the land a bit, so it's not too much of an issue. Now that I have the fishing dock, there are a couple other buildings I want to build around it. First, I'm going to have a little dirt road, and I'm just going to, say, stretch it out to there, and then pull it up and put it up against our storage cart. Now, the nice thing about that is this little storage cart, as people are working there and they need to get down and kind of like go back and forth, they'll be able to walk up and get all this food and etc. But the other thing we really want is actually the storage barn. Now, I want to put this right behind the fishing dock, and there's a very good reason for that. That reason is essentially you'll have fishermen assigned. Oh, okay. Speaking of assigning people, I need to put this up, and I also want my limits. Now, I like to set right out the gate. I just crank logs and food up to the max. And the reason for it, really, you never want there to be a limit on food unless you're intentionally trying to limit your population growth. And it's pretty rare that that's the case. So you don't want people to stop collecting food. Same with logs. You need a ton of logs, you're using firewood, and it's a resource that you continually want to produce. And there's no real reason to limit logs unless you're starting to run out of storage space. But you know, that won't be an issue for a long time. So I'm just going to go and crank those two up. And, you know, if it does become an issue, we can always reset later. But honestly, I've never had problems with logs filling up my stockpile. They're just continually used. So it shouldn't be that. You see 30 logs here. We're going to need it for firewood. It's honestly not an issue. So I'm just going to crank both those up almost immediately. Now, getting back to the storage. The storage barn stores essentially tools, food, herbs, like all the stuff on this half. And the way your villagers will work, we'll have some fishermen assigned here. And as they fish, you know, they get little boxes of fish, and they want to take it and drop it off at storage. Well, if the storage is right across the street, they'll go drop it off and immediately turn around, go back, start working again. But say if I have the storage like way back here, they'd have to do that long walk, and it really adds up very quickly. I believe it's like for every one road that your villager has to walk to get to storage between it and fishing, costs you like 10 fish that could have been collected in the same amount of time. It adds up very quickly. So, you know, we want to put that right there. The other thing we want right there are actually houses, and the reason for that is houses, they serve several different functions in the game. Let's see. I wonder... I kind of want this pretty snug, so maybe... Nah. Yeah, we'll do it right here. Let's see if I can get the road around that corner. If I can. It looks kind of interesting there. I can. Okay. Now... houses serve basically three functions in the game. The first function is, as your villagers are out working, eventually they get hungry and they get cold. And they'll have to go back to their home to fix that. And what they'll do is they go back to their home, and houses have little inventories like firewood and food. And so they'll go back to their home, they'll use up a little bit of the firewood, a little bit of the food, and that'll fix them being cold and hungry. And then they can go back about their business. So you really want to put your houses next to areas that your villagers are working. This way, like, the fishermen will live in this house, and when they get hungry, when they get cold, they'll be able to go from here, where they're working, pretty much straight back to their house to warm up, to, you know, eat, and then right back to work. Now, if they were living really far away, that would mean they would have to walk a really long distance. So you always want to pair your houses off with areas that the villagers are working at. So it's just a little handy tip to know. The other purpose houses serve is when two adults, young adults, are in a house together, male and female, they start making babies. So that's how you boost your population. And you have to pay attention to the number of houses that you have, because if you don't, let's say you don't build enough homes, eventually people start to die of old age, but you won't have any young people who are born to take their place. You can actually have your entire village die of old age. It actually happened quite a lot to me when I first started playing the game, and it can be frustrating because that won't happen for quite some time. So that's something to pay attention to. You always want to kind of be building one or two houses. I'm going to let this run for a bit, and while this is going, I also want to show off some of these tools. Now, this collect stone and collect iron, they're very useful tools, and as well harvest trees. I'm going to order my laborers to kind of clean up this area a bit, claim some of these resources, because we're going to need them for building houses and other structures early on. Now, a thing to keep in mind as these guys go out and about and start, digging up rocks and chopping down trees, they're gonna need a place to drop off all the goods. So that is where the other storage comes in, these little stockpiles. Now, I call them like dummy stockpiles, or, it's just like, I'm going to put a little stockpile relatively close to where they're doing work. That way, they'll cut down, say, a tree, and instead of having to walk a very long distance to drop it off, they can just drop it off in this little stockpile. And it's definitely useful to have these things put in place. I might even put another one right over here. And it doesn't, it seems like, well, they're not that far apart. Is it that big of a deal? It kind of is. Like, these guys, they get, oh, I need a sign. I'll put one builder in so we can start working on these roads. But even that small distance, you see how long it takes him to walk all the way down? Yeah, it's significant enough that I'd want another one over here. And over time, like, we'll clear out the stockpiles and move them around. And, I mean, these are just little temporary things to aid in the clearing of these trees. Now, speaking of trees, it's about time we start working on securing a supply of logs. And now, the way I'm going to do that is, it's a building called a forester. Well, it's basically like a forest node. Is sort of the community term for it. But the idea is, what we want is this forester. And you see that radius around him? Foresters are pretty cool. What they'll do is they will actually, let's see if I can, I'm going to pause that. It's often useful to pause buildings if you need to devote logs and stone to other constructions. And right now, our priority needs to be on this fishing. So I'm going to pause that so we're not wasting time trying to build it. But basically, what this guy does is the forester, he'll go out and he maintains the forest around him. He'll plant new trees and then chop down the old trees. And eventually, you get this nice maintained forest. It's a steady supply of logs, which you desperately need for all kinds of resources. It's, a very good situation to have a couple of these forester nodes up to secure just supplies of essential goods. Now, there's several buildings that you want to pair with your forester node, and I'll explain them as I am in. So the first thing is I'm going to add in a little bit of a dirt road, not much. Eventually, like, we're going to extend this road down to here. In fact, maybe I should do that. And I'm going to get rid of that stockpile too, but it's a handy thing to... Oh, that... Ew. That's no good. That is actually a hill. Oh, that's a shame. Okay. Well, I'm not going to build a forester there because with this hill, villagers are going to have to walk around. It basically makes it, like, inconvenient. So, the handy thing is, since it's paused and no one's put any materials into it, you can just cancel. I guess we'll have to build one here, then? That is an issue, unfortunately. Well, let me... See, I want the Forester Lodge, right, to be relatively close to the fishing and all, like, this little village down here. So, it's a shame I can't quite, it'd be nice if it was lined up with that road. But if I put it too far back, there's this hill here, and I think it's going to give us the same problem. Let's do this. Okay. Now the other thing to pay attention to is you don't want the Forester Lodge to overlap too much with these hills. They are inconvenient. I almost want to build a bridge over to here for it, but that's a lot of stone early on. I'm really tempted to do that though, because this adds a lot of extra walking. I don't know. Should we do the bridge? I think I'm gonna do the bridge actually. Yeah. Normally I wouldn't recommend doing this because see, it costs some stone, but I think it'll pay off. Let's get this bridge aligned with, because it'll be just more streamlined, and this is some nice flat land over here. Plus, there's a ton of iron and stone that we can harvest, so should be worth it. We'll go ahead and put our forester node in first, though. And you don't want, obviously, you don't want this overlapping with too much water or too many mountains, because that just kind of cuts into how productive it can be. So that should be pretty good. Yeah, and it's as close as I can get it to the actual town. So I'm going to put a pin, well, I'm going to pin this. So basically, if you drag it to the top, it'll maintain this little circle, and you'll be able to see it as you kind of line up the rest of your construction. So it's a handy little detail to know about. Just stretch this road out a bit, and then put in a bridge. Now bridges, they do cost stone, which can actually be a problem early on. So I want this one to be as tiny as I can make it. 13 stone, I think we can live with that. Especially with the little bits and pieces that we're picking up here. So, anyway, let's talk about this forester node. Let's get moving on it. Now, there are a couple of things you want to put around your forester node. And the really key one is this, the gatherer's hut. Now, the gatherer's hut is surprisingly the best food supply in the game. It's more efficient than farmland, and unlike farms where you only get one variety of food and only at one time of the year, you know, autumn when they harvest the grain or whatever they're growing. These guys, they give you food throughout the year. During midwinter, you'll pick up stuff. You know, it's a constant steady supply of food. And more importantly, is it actually gives you a variety of food. And the variety of food is significant because it affects the health of your citizens. And you don't want unhealthy citizens. It's a pretty bad situation, actually, to have. So it's something to keep in mind as you are designing your city. Early on, you probably want to go after the gatherer's hut for food. Now, fishing is also a good source. It only gives you fish, but it gives you a lot of it. So that's why I tend to either want to build a forester node right away or a fishing, kind of little fishing hole or fishing village right away. So in this case, I'm going for the fishing because it was right next to our start, and it's less walking around for our guys to have to do. So, but normally, like, I'd almost recommend going for the gatherer first. Now, there are a couple other buildings we need to put here. Two of them, let's see, we've already talked about. Basically, we want storage here. We want a barn for essentially any of the food that the gatherer picks up. They'll just dump in that barn, which is pretty handy. You know, it means that the gatherer will go out, he'll pick, you know, mushrooms and whatnot, and then he'll come back and put it right in the storage barn and go back out again. So that'll keep him busy gathering and not walking back to drop off the goods. The other thing we want to put in here, though, is a stockpile. And that stockpile, it's for the forester. That way he can just, like, dump logs directly into it. I just put a tiny one. It doesn't have to be especially large. Because those logs, they're going to get used up pretty quickly. Essentially, there are a couple of buildings that we're going to put in a second that will chew through the log supply as it comes in. So you don't have to worry about storage for logs. They get used pretty quickly. I'm also going to complete this road here. Now, roads are handy to have. Obviously, they just increase the speed that your little guys can walk. The reason why it's doing this and not doing like a perfectly straight thing is it has to weave in between where we've assigned it to cut down those trees. So we're just gonna have to wait on. I like to do pretty like nice corners. There's a honestly, it's probably a better idea because the villagers tend to walk in diagonals to use more natural roads, like stuff that curves, but I find, like, I just like the way that straight roads look, so I tend to go that route, and usually it works out just fine. And usually it's not too much of an issue. So I'm also gonna pause. I'm gonna pause everything here for now because I don't want them to be trying to cross and not be able to get across. And I don't know. I don't think laborers are that stupid. I think if they know they can't reach a particular area, they don't prioritize that to work on. But I haven't proven that, so it's just just as a precaution, I'm going to keep these paused. Let's see, so we got our stockpile in, that's good. What else? What else? We also want a hunting cabin. Now these are interesting buildings. They don't really work the way you imagine they would. If you look around the map, and I just saw some down here. Well, let's see. Just kind of quick scan, see if we can find any. Ah, they're hiding. Oh, here we go. If you look down here, yeah, there are deer that wander around the map. And you figure, well, if they wander near a hunting cabin, they'd get shot and get harvested. But that's actually not really how hunting cabins work. They, basically, they just generate food, and, it doesn't matter if anything wanders into their radius or anything of that nature. They just make food. What the radius does affect is their productivity, but it's based not on any kind of like deer, like these little deer being within the radius. It's forest. Hunters do better when there's like a good lush forest around them. So they're a good thing to pair off with a forest or lodge. I'm also going to pause that. Hunting is not a great way to generate food. It actually does not make much food whatsoever. What it does make are hides, and you're going to want hides. Since we're not going to have any livestock for a long time, I'm going to actually crank the builders up a little bit more, because I really want to get this finished, so they can start fishing. But, yeah, until you get herds, you don't really have a good source of hides. Okay, and we'll get one fisherman going. Fishing is a good source of food. If you don't have a storage barn right next to it and you don't have a lot of area in it, it can be pretty weak. So you have to pay attention to that. I mentioned that already, but just to emphasize, you really want to like place these carefully and well. Otherwise, like you won't get nearly as much as you were hoping out of it. Now yeah, so the hides are used to make clothing, and the thing about clothes is, and this confuses so many people. A lot of folks think, well, if they're wearing clothes, the villagers won't get cold. No, they do get cold, and the clothing can't warm them up. What clothes does, though, is it increases the amount of time before they start to feel cold. So it's definitely good to have like the best quality of clothing that you can get. However, you don't really, it's not a huge priority, at least out of the gate. Like your villagers won't freeze to death if they're wearing tattered, terrible clothing. So it's something to keep in mind. You don't really have to worry too much about that. Now, well, while I'm thinking about it, we also need to put in a couple more houses. We want at least 2 here for now. This is where the gatherer and the forester are going to live. Eventually, you add up to 6 homes here. Now, you want to limit the amount of building you do within the forest node. So you got to keep it kind of restricted to just the houses for these workers and the storage. If you start adding extra stuff, it cuts into how productive they can actually be. So it's something to keep in mind. Like you want this radius to be pretty much almost all forest with very little actual buildings within. Just put the essential stuff, the houses that you're gonna need, the the forester and the gatherer and all that. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm gonna unpause these. Well, yeah, I think they haven't worked on the bridge much. It's on slow speed. They probably are working on it. Just it's gonna take them some time. And now we can link up this road and have it just be kind of a nice little curve. So the let's see what else. What else? I know this is a bit. I mean, this is just like a massive info dump, but. Out the gate, there's a lot of stuff that I feel that is worth knowing and worth explaining. So now we're going to lose a little bit of efficiency for the next building I'm going to put in, just because people are going to have to cross this bridge. One way to like help that out would possibly be to like put, I don't know. See, I'm so used to there's a mod that I put in that I normally play with, where you can actually like stretch out stockpiles and make them really long and skinny, and it's convenient for moving goods without having to have labor pick it up. But you can't really do that in the basic vanilla game. I'm just gonna go and put the building in here. Now these two buildings, if I had to like explain like the pace of when buildings need to go in, these next two, they need to go in before, probably before the first winter. Both of them are very essential, and if you don't build them as soon as you can, like you're going to suffer pretty badly from it. So, what are these two buildings? Well, the first is the wood cutter, and what the wood cutter does is, well, I mean, they cut wood. They make firewood. And obviously, you do have a little bit of firewood out the door, but it's not much, and you will run out pretty quickly. And especially on a harsh climate, your houses need to have some firewood. So it's definitely something that you want to be on board of, or on top of, right out the gate. Now I'll also put right next to the woodcutter another little stockpile, and it's just so that as they chop wood, they can drop their fuel off right here and get right back to work. We also want a house. We'll just put one, I don't know, right here's fine. I'm actually going to put two in because I'm going to put another very, very important building right here. And that building is, here, the blacksmith. You want to build a blacksmith very, very quickly. And the reason for that is the blacksmith makes tools. So what are tools? What do they do? Tools are essentially, if your villagers have them, they work at their maximum efficiency. If they don't have them, if they run out, and already we're down to 10 tools, they'll get this kind of little emblem saying, hey, I have no tools, and they'll start freaking out, and their efficiency tanks. They just get really terrible at doing their jobs when they run out of tools. So you want to have this built long before you're approaching like one tool, because if you run out of tools, it has this horrible cascading effect where essentially like, oh, you're out of tools, now it's going to like be harder for your blacksmith because he doesn't have any tools to make more tools. You understand, like it can just get exponentially worse and worse. The other thing I want to build, and I'm probably going to just put it in, I don't know, maybe right there. I kind of want to leave a little bit of room so I can like stretch a road this way. So we might have some more homes behind there or something. So yeah, let's do that. Another storage barn, and that's just so the blacksmith can drop off their tools. And in case we have any other buildings up here, they'll be able to take them and drop off the storage barn. You really can't build too many storage barns. They drastically increase your efficiency of your workers. Now I'm going to pause these just because I want them to devote more resources towards getting the gatherer up. They're going to have some food coming in. See, they already have some fish, but the gatherer really does. It's better than farming. You know, like you have to place them correctly. You have to put them near forester nodes, but per villager, you'll get more food out of the gatherer's hut and more variety of food than you will out of a farm. Now, the main difference, though, is a farm is smaller. You know, you can get like a lot of food out of a farm without needing this big radius. So it's more of an end game food source. It's something where, okay, it's time that you want to build more houses, you want to really scale up your population, and you don't want to have to devote giant circles for forester lot nodes or lodges or whatever all over the map. And that's really what it comes down to. Like, but you know, per labor, the gatherer's hut is actually the superior option. So it's just something to keep in mind. Now I'm actually gonna crank up the speed a little bit, just to get them going. And I've Signed a couple more fishers, just because we really want more fish coming. I might even go up to 3. I don't want to throw them all after it because I still need these laborers up and gathering resources, but I wouldn't mind getting at least a good chunk of fish stored up. Now you see here, like you got 2 adults, they have a child. I expect they're going to have 2 more children. So that's like one of the reasons why it's important to keep up with your houses. And now once the house gets full, well, here's kind of an inconvenient thing. Let's say, these guys could be like 80, 85 or so, and one of them dies off. There's no way, though. Basically, if you don't have enough homes, what can happen is with the children, like, if they don't have a house to move into, even if spaces start to clear out as, the grandparents die off, they'll never have kids. Like, so long as, like, their parents are in the house, they can't make any... you can't have, like, an extended family, husband, wife, the grandma or grandpa, and all the kids. You can't do that. You have to keep building new houses to guarantee your population steadily grows. The other thing you have to watch for, though, is you don't want to, like, go just too nuts and get way too many people to feed. You have to pay attention to that, too. So, it's tricky. Sometimes balancing out when to grow, when not to grow, is can be a challenge. But it's definitely something to keep in mind. So let's see here. Yeah, I'm gonna crank up to 10, get this bridge built. Are they out of assignments? Oh, and you always so laborers. What do laborers do? They do a couple of things. One, they'll cut down anytime you use anything from the removal and destruction tools, except I believe remove roads. Villagers are responsible for that. Villagers are also responsible for, say, clearing out land before it can be built on. And they will also go and pick up resources like building materials and carry them to a construction site. So they're very useful, especially early game when you're trying to build up and expand your population. Now see, we're already in autumn, it's already very cold, and we're out of homes. So that's bad. What I'm going to do is I'm going to prioritize these homes getting built, because if they don't, people are going to start freezing to death pretty soon. So we need those built, and I think we should have enough food coming in. Yeah, that should be just about enough to get us through the winter. So right now, homes and firewood are actually the 2 most important things. So I'm going to crank up this tool right here, increase priority. It lets you tell them what to build first. So it's it's definitely handy. So I'm hopeful that these things get built before the winter gets really bad, but I mean, it's already... this is Fahrenheit, by the way. I could set Celsius. I might. I kind of wish you could do a dual display, like have in Fahrenheit and in Celsius, but... I'm from like one of the few countries on Earth that still uses Fahrenheit, the U.S. of A, and I know what that temperature is. To be fair though, I've trained in physics, so I've used Celsius plenty of times as well, and I kind of have an idea with the Celsius system. Like obviously 0 degrees means it's freezing out, but at the same time, it kind of like, I don't know, this is just like the thing that I look at and naturally know if that temperature is a dangerous temperature or not. So, I don't know, I'm on the fence about it, but for now, we're going to leave it in Fahrenheit. I hope it doesn't confuse too many people. But, yeah, this is below 0 degrees Celsius, because 32 degrees Fahrenheit is equal to 0 degrees Celsius. I hope that helps our Canadian viewership. Well, not just Canada, like literally, basically the entire world, because U.S. is a little backward on our measurements. I don't know why, but anyway, let's I'm gonna slow it down. Well, let's leave it at 5. I really hope these houses get built fast, because you see, people are homeless, and they're also gonna start getting hungry. I'm a little like concerned that we spent so much time building this bridge and not getting homes up, and we might lose quite a few people actually if that situation doesn't improve. Are they missing something? No, we got stone. Yeah, see, we already got a kid getting born, so that's how kids get born, you know. Okay, so I'm glad they built that, but get the houses done, guys. Eesh, that's bad. How much in the stockpile? Only 38. Hopefully, we'll get lucky with the temperature, and they're also gonna start getting hungry too, which is kind of a tragedy because we have plenty of food coming in. It's just, oh, if these guys are homeless, I'm going to build another house next to the fishing as well. Kind of get that lined up. Because, you know, I have enough fishermen assigned there now that they need a second home just to support it all. And it's always good to have, like, the houses adjacent to roads. It's a little bit of an improvement on how quickly things can get to places. So I am going to assign a woodcutter, which might be a problem if they're chopping too much wood because we need the wood for homes. But I think we're going to get them built in time. It's going to be close though. It is very unforgiving in the early years when it comes to homes. I actually want to get like another builder going. I really need these houses to get finished. And see, they need firewood too. That's why I assigned that woodcutter. But so far, I think we're doing fine with food, which is nice. It's just if they don't get houses soon, it's bad. So, especially we're already in early winter. What happened was I wasn't able to build the forest node in a really convenient spot. And having to build that bridge cost me some time, so I'm hoping that these builders actually are able to finish this quickly enough. I'm going to start unpausing some of these things. I want to unpause the storage barn since they've laid down the materials they need for the houses, and let's get the forester and the hunting cabins going as well. Oh, it's up here. And we can unpin that. We have, like, we know where the houses need to go in. So, now, we definitely, let's unpause this and unpause. We absolutely need to get working on that blacksmith because if you look at the tool supply, 7's okay, but as these guys start to grow up, they're going to need tools. Tools will start to break after about the first year. And trust me, if you get stuck with no tools, it can really hurt you. So it's something you need to pay attention to. Firewood is low, but I think we're producing enough of it. The thing I'm actually concerned with now is, now that we have enough homes, is I want to get more food going, and I also want I need to get my log supply coming in. So getting the forester going will definitely start helping that out. Alright, I'm going to put one gatherer, just one for now. I think we have enough food with the fish, so. Although you see it's kind of sort of hovering in lower. Let's see, where is it? 220 is okay. It's not, is it like, you definitely want more eventually. That's what I'm trying to say. Now that we've also cleared out these stockpiles, I'm going to go ahead and just remove some of them because we don't really need them. I'll keep the cart if we can fit it in because, I mean, it's free storage, which is always handy. Plus, it doesn't take up much room. Just maybe like the space that house could fit in, so I'm fine with that. And you see, it's working out quite well. Our woodcutter, our woodcutter's living here. Walks across, starts cutting logs, and dumps it right there, and goes right back. That will really help you if you set up these kind of little stockpiles just kind of scattered about. That stockpile will also be useful for the blacksmith because he'll be able to go there and pick up some of the iron. Anyway, I think, let's get a forester going, and honestly, we're getting close to a good stopping point. I've shown how to build these forest nodes. I talked about fishing and like just logistics. I think that's a good start. So I'm gonna call this an episode, and thank you all for coming by. Sorry for the sniffle. Still very a very sneezy time of year for me. But anyway, yeah, when we come back, we'll probably add in some extra forest nodes. We'll start to crank up the food and the housing to get more people, because we're down to 2 laborers. I'd like to get some of these kids growing up, and just we also need to like add in a couple more buildings pretty soon. I'll walk you through what they do and all that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you had a good time, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate you all coming by and making any kind of like, if you have like any suggestions or opinions, feel free to share them. Anyway, you all have a good day, and thanks again for hanging out. Have a good one.